mountainside. Oh, Drew, you've had it. But I'll be there until the...
Few episodes in late-night TV history have backfired more spectacularly than when Courtney Love crashed The Late Show stage in 1998. She didn't just humiliate host Dave Letterman, the ramifications rippled through both her career and pop culture history for decades. Join Factsverse as we present She Was Never Allowed Back to The Late Show after this. Early life and rise to fame. Courtney Love's path to fame was anything but conventional. She endured a turbulent childhood filled with upheaval and adversity. Born to counterculture parents in 1964, her early years were marred by divorce and frequent moves. By age 13, she had already dabbled in drugs and petty crime, foreshadowing a life that was defined by excess and boundary-pushing behavior. In her teens, she supported herself by working as a stripper in Asia and Australia. The gritty club scene served as her introduction to punk rock and new wave bands that shaped her musical tastes. During this time, she taught herself to play guitar and started writing her own angst-filled music. By the late 80s, she had moved to LA, determined to make it as a musician. She placed a newspaper ad seeking bandmates to form, quote, the most dangerous band in the world. Her vision attracted guitarist Eric Erlandson and drummer Caroline Rue, forming the first incarnation of Hole. They quickly gained a following for their raw, aggressive sound and Love's confrontational stage presence. She sang about female rage, violence, and despair, striking a chord with the Riot Grrrl movement. Hole's debut album, Pretty on the Inside, established Love as a force in the male-dominated grunge scene. Her vocals careened between a banshee wail and a little girl whisper, reflecting the bipolar nature of her personality. She continued to make waves by pursuing high-profile relationships with other alternative rock stars like Billy Corgan and Trent Reznor. But it was her whirlwind romance with Kurt Cobain that cemented her fame and her notoriety. Their drug-fueled, passionate, and ultimately tragic relationship amplified Love's celebrity profile exponentially. She was now the face of the grunge generation, beautiful, brilliant, and completely unhinged. When Cobain took his own life in 1994, the punk princess was thrust into the glare of the media spotlight. She channeled her grief into Hole's seminal album, Live Through This, considered one of the greatest albums of the decade. By the mid-90s, Love had evolved from a raw underground talent into a global pop culture icon. She had the musical chops, the sensationalized personal life, and the crazed charisma to sustain her fame and influence. Love's wild antics and legal troubles. Courtney Love has never been one to shy away from the spotlight, even when it shines an unflattering light on her unconventional behavior. Her drug-fueled antics and frequent brushes with the law have become the stuff of rock legend. Her proclivity for attention-grabbing stunts dates back to her early career. In 1995, she made headlines for crashing Madonna's live interview at the MTV Video Music Awards, hurling her makeup compact at the pop icon. While Madonna handled it with poise, the bizarre ambush highlighted Love's craving for the limelight. As Hole's success grew, so did Love's appetite for drama. She openly baited journalists in interviews with provocative comments about her drug use, relationships, and custody issues. During a Notorious magazine profile in the early 2000s, Love underwent a bikini wax in front of the stunned reporter. To complete the spectacle, she bathed in champagne and ran naked down the street. Her refusal to censor herself led to frequent blow-ups during Hole's tours as well. She regularly dove into hostile rants and even assaults on fans who she felt disrespected her. Venues and promoters grew wary of the liability posed by her combustible presence. Offstage, her behavior grew increasingly erratic in the late 90s as her addiction spiraled. Tabloids documented her drug-addled public displays and multiple overdoses. An alleged arson attempt on her NYC apartment and a custody battle over Frances Bean Cobain added to the drama. Her behavior led to frequent encounters with the law. She was arrested numerous times for illicit substance possession and disorderly conduct. In 2004, she briefly served time in jail in Los Angeles due to violations of probation. Violent outbursts also landed Love in legal jeopardy over the years. She faced charges for assaulting journalists, audience members, and airline staff during her unhinged moments. Her refusal to temper her rock and roll excess with common sense or restraint led some venues to ban her outright. By the early 2000s, her substance abuse and mental health struggles became increasingly intertwined with her public persona. The traumas of her past and the stressors of fame manifested in self-destructive ways, but she remained unapologetic, wearing her battle scars like badges of honor. In recent years, the rebellious rocker seems to have achieved some stability and sobriety. While she still indulges her shocking impulses on occasion, she focuses more on revisiting her musical legacy. She maintains she has no regrets about her wilder, destructive days. The Late Show Fiasco. In September 2003, Courtney Love appeared as a guest on The Late Show with David Letterman for what would become one of the most bizarre incidents in the show's history. By this point, erratic behavior had become par for the course for the notorious rocker. But this night, she took things to a whole new level. From the moment she stepped on stage, it was clear something was amiss. Love seemed incoherent and unsteady, rambling nonsensically through a garbled introduction. As the audience tittered nervously, Letterman tried to steer the interview back on track, only to be met with a barrage of unintelligible responses. At times, Love was combative and confrontational. At others, she seemed on the verge of breaking down. Things went from awkward to alarming when Love hoisted up her skirt against Letterman's protests, flashing the stunned audience. Staff members rushed on stage, attempting to cover her up and usher her away as she continued her profanity-laced tirade. At one point, she nearly toppled off the stage into the orchestra pit below. The chaotic scene was broadcast live, capturing every cringeworthy moment. In the aftermath, fingers were pointed in all directions. Love blamed the debacle on a mix-up in her medication, but her history of drug abuse led many to believe she was under the influence during the disastrous interview. The network questioned why Letterman's team allowed it to continue given her obvious impairment. Regardless, the damage was done. Love was banned from ever returning to The Late Show. For Letterman, the ugly incident highlighted the unpredictable risks of live television. And for Love, her unhinged behavior further cemented her reputation as a loose cannon. Years later, a sober Love expressed regret over the fiasco, admitting she was, quote, a crazy mess at that low point in her life. But she maintained some of the blame lay with Letterman for exploiting her vulnerability for ratings. Their tense on-air dynamic highlighted the culture clash between the snarky late-night host and the unpredictable rock star. The episode became a pop culture punchline for years to come, but it also represented the height of Love's unraveling mental state and self-destructive tendencies. Unfortunately, her personal demons continued to play out publicly for years before she committed to getting her life back on track. But the Late Show debacle remains an indelible part of her legacy. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you remember seeing this episode of The Late Show? Let us know in the comments section below.